type of virus that was seen in Wuhan town in the city of a country in China. Now, once this was reported, is as early as 31st December, a group of people were diagnosed with the pneumonia, which unknown cause. Finally, they found out that it was caused by coronavirus. Then it was intimated to the WHO office of the regional Chinese WHO office, which was later notified to the WHO regional office and then to the main office. It took almost 1 month for WHO to announce it as the pandemic, that it almost around January 30th, 2020, they took the seriously, and they declared it as pandemic. And around February 11th, they nomenclatured this as COVID-19. So this is what they have. This is what the nomenclature has been done, that as COVID-19. Ma'am, next slide, ma'am. Hello, ma'am.
Yeah. Are you able to see now?
No, I'm still in. For me, it's the first slide. I'm able to see only the first slide.
Sorry, just a minute.
So this is what we had it in Wuhan, and then it slowly spread all over the China. And because the international flights were still flying, it spread all over the world. The first country to hit was US, because there the transportation of people from China to US was very high, and then to the European countries. So that's how the COVID spread all over the world. In India, what happened was the 3 Chinese students, they landed up in Kerala, and Kerala was the first state to report COVID, with 3 students in mainly in Calicut, one in Trivandrum, and one in Thrissur. These were the 3 students. They came from Wuhan. They were tested positive, and they quarantined, and they went home safely. But later, because of this international flights, the whole of India got it. Now we can see, because of that, we have a lockdown. Now coming to the structure. Yeah, next slide, ma'am. Next. See, this is the place where it started. Then coronavirus. What is this coronavirus? Coronavirus is a simple virus. It's an enveloped RNA virus, which has got some structures on its surface, that is S protein, and then there is a M protein, and it's an enveloped virus. Since it is an enveloped virus, it's easy for us to control it, because this envelope is made up of lipids, and any lipid solvent can easily destroy this. That's why we recommend the hand rub, which is made up of alcohol, which is a lipid solvent, which can kill this virus very easily. That's the reason why alcohol-based hand rubs or sanitizers are being asked to be used. Next slide. Technical features in this is very simple. It's as simple as like what we get during common cold. We might get a cough, fever, sore throat, headache, and in some cases even shortness of breath or breathlessness. But fever will be there. For 80 to 90% of the people, this is the only symptom what they get. But if somebody is having some predisposing factors like asthma or something like that, this can rapidly progress to breathlessness, cardiac failure, respiratory failure, and even the renal failure, or the kidneys might also fail. So this is how it can be cause death in patients who are already having some diseases, underlying diseases. Ma'am, next slide, ma'am. So 80 to 80% of the people, they do not have any severe symptoms. as simple as common cold what we see. But if somebody has got somebody is diabetic, hypertensive, or having a heart disease, or even cancer, such people are going to have this as a severe disease, and they can even succumb to death. The mode of transmission of this virus is through our droplets, or it is called as droplets because when we sneeze, we might bring out some secretions from our nose and mouth, which might fall on a person who is standing less than 1 meter from us. So it can be transmitted easily to the person who, if the distance between the two is less than 1. That's why we say stand away, that's social distancing of minimum 2 meters away, so that the droplets do not fall on the person who is standing in front of the infected individual. Or even wearing the mask can prevent this droplets getting dispersed from the face. Then it can transmit from the hands or from the fomites, that is from the surface where these droplets are fallen. From there it can go into the person if he touches with the same hand without washing or without using sanitizer. If he touches this same hand in the nose, eyes, and the mouth, it can get transmitted very easily from one person to another. Next slide. Yeah, next slide. Now, next, coming to lab diagnosis. Next slide. Lab diagnosis. How do we go about this? So, Government of India has come up with guidelines. ICMR, that is Indian Center for Medical Research, Indian Council for Medical Research, ICMR, MCI, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. These three authorities are giving the guidelines on real-time basis, that is almost daily. Even today, the guidelines have been updated. Those guidelines, we go for the diagnosis. Next slide. So what are the samples we collect for a diagnosis? So for that, if the patient has got, next slide. This is a picture of the VTM, that is viral transport media, in which this is collected. Next slide. No, I think previous slide. There is a slide on sample collection after lab diagnosis. Yeah. What are the samples we collect? So the samples collected is in the person who is suspected to have this upper respiratory tract infection, or those who are in contact of a known patient, or those who have a travel history. So from such persons, we collect the sample. The collected samples are mainly from the respiratory tract. That is, it can be a nasal swab that is taken. A long swab is put through the nostril up till the posterior pharyngeal wall. That is called as nasopharyngeal swab. Or through the mouth, it is inserted so much that it touches the back of the mouth. That is called as oropharyngeal swab. Or even the, just the nose can be swiped with the interior of the nose can be swiped with the swab, and that is collected. That is called as nasal swabs. These are the non-invasive. That is where just the swab is introduced and taken the sample. Whereas lower respiratory tract samples, which are the best sample for this, but the only drawback is we need to do either bronchoscopy for this, which takes another risk for the healthcare workers because it can produce more aerosols. So this samples are taken mainly from patients who are ventilated. Such samples like bronchoalveolar lavage, which is like you give a wash in the lung and then you take the secretions. That is called as bronchoalveolar lavage, or tracheal aspirate. Pleural fluid lung biopsy, these are done mostly in case there is a death, and post-mortem lung biopsy can be taken. Or in the person who is conscious, sputum also can be collected for the testing for COVID. Now, the recent guidelines says, especially those who are international travelers, they do a rapid test. For this rapid test, they take blood and look for antibodies. So that's why the blood is collected for serology. So these are the samples what we collect for COVID-19. Next slide, ma'am. Once the sample is collected, it is inserted, the swab is inserted into the media called as viral transport media, which is made up of fetal calf serum and some electrolytes and few of the materials which help the virus to retain and not to die and transport it from the site of collection to the lab where it is tested. It has to be maintained in the cold chain between 2 to 8 degrees in the ice pack, and then it has to be sent to the lab. In lab, what happens? This is a slide which is slightly busy. Please note it. It's how we go about and how we confirm whether the patient is COVID positive or negative. That's what is being shown here. So for everything, unless a patient is having a symptom, we do not consider testing him. Unless he is a primary contact, say somebody at home is positive or somebody in the hospital is positive, then only the clinicians or the doctors are tested. Otherwise, only the symptomatic individuals in the public is being collected for this sample. That is called as ILI, that is ILI, influenza-like illness. So those who have cold, cough, low-grade fever, or sore throat, such patients are only considered. For most of the people, if such symptoms are there, initial guidelines said stay at home quarantine. But since later the cases have increased, now they have asked for doing blood tests for antibodies. This is the test what we do for the international travelers and immigrants. Initially, this is what we're being done. So in this, we had a series of cases where the international travelers were tested negative in their place where they boarded the flight, but when they came to India and the PCR was done, they were found to be positive. So that is one of the drawbacks where antibody testing is done. It takes 2 to 6 days for the antibodies to develop in the serum. So in the case the patient is already having symptoms less than 6 days, then antibody test may not come positive. So here in this slide, you can see on the left hand side, there is positive sign, that is rapid antibody test positive. If this is positive, we say that patient has already developed disease and he may not develop again once more disease because he has already got the antibodies in it. Now, if this test is negative, antibody test is negative, that means the patient is in the early stage. He might be negative for the disease or he might be in the early stage of the disease. For this, if warranted, if the doctors feel that the patient may be positive for PCR still, then we go for real-time PCR, reverse transcriptase PCR. Now, if PCR is positive, that is the confirmatory test. If PCR is positive, we consider the patient as COVID positive. If the PCR is negative, then the patient is not suffered from this COVID-19. He might be suffering from some other viral infection. That might be the cause for influenza-like illness. But another way of testing is also there. If the antibodies are negative and patient is having mild symptoms, then the antibody test is repeated again after 10 days, which you can see on the right-hand side of the slide. Again, the antibodies are tested after 10 days. In this, if it is positive, then we consider them to be a corona case or COVID case. Otherwise, we consider them as to be negative. So all these positive cases, if they are healthy, they are kept at home quarantine. If they are having any comorbid conditions like hypertension, diabetes, cancer, bronchial asthma, then they are admitted in the hospital for institutional quarantine for 14 days. And then again, they are tested for PCR at 5 and 10th day after confirmation of the disease. So this is how we diagnose the flow chart of diagnosing COVID test. And once they are diagnosed with positive, at least 2 swabs of interval of 24 hours, they need to be negative to say they are free from COVID-19. This is how we are diagnosing the patients. And this is the flow chart from the guidelines. Next slide. Next slide is about the rapid test. So this is a rapid test that we do. It is a simple rapid test which is being used for HIV, hepatitis B, and various other clinical diseases. Even urine pregnancy test and other tests are also done on the same antigen antibody reaction. This is called as immunochromatography test. This is what is being done in international travelers who are boarding the flights from other places. But once they come to India, we are doing real-time PCR. So there are a lot of drawbacks of this. We may miss the patients in the early stage until the patient develops antibodies in them. Next slide. Then coming to what tests we do in the lab in India. Most of the lab we are doing real-time PCR, real-time reverse transcriptase PCR or RT-PCR. This it has got two steps. One is RNA extraction and other one is the PCR per se. So RNA extraction has to be done in a very safe manner where the person needs to wear all the PPE like the doctor who is treating a patient. Similarly, when we are handling a sample, we need to wear all the PPE and we need to work for around 8 to 10 hours in this cabinet, that is biosafety cabinet level 3, where we need to wear all this PPE. Next level comes in PCR where we have isolated the RNA. So this becomes free from infection. So here all the disposable PPE is not required, but we need to wear some lab apron, the mask, the gloves, and the face shield is required here, but it's less infective compared to the sample. Next slide. RNA extraction. There are multiple methods of doing RNA extraction. There are many companies they have come up with, but what we are doing in most of the lab, the government or the ICMR approved labs is with this magnetic beads, which is a latest technology. In last 5 years, it has emerged. So this is the method what we use. So here we take the sample in a buffer, which has got added with magnetic beads. And once we keep it incubate at 56, and it has got a proteinase K in it, which will lyse all the epithelial cells which are there in the sample, and the virus particle will be exposed. And again, only the RNA goes and binds to the magnetic beads, as shown in this middle test tube. This one, left hand side, the set of 3 tubes, that the middle one shows the magnetic beads and RNA in that. Once the magnetic rod is introduced in it, the magnetic beads allow the RNA go and bind to it with the remaining particles and contaminant remaining in the buffer. Next step goes into the wash, where all the contaminant and the residual particles get washed off. This is done mainly with 80% alcohol. And then finally, the pure RNA is collected in the nucleic, the RNA is collected in the elution buffer, which is usually double distilled water. And this, it is collected. And this is how the extraction takes place. We use a sample load of around 200 microliter. And then we get the RNA in an elution buffer of around 60 microliter. This is how the process is taken. Then there are some other methods of extraction based on the company of which is being procured by the lab. This is the instrument what we are using. This is based on magnetic beads technology. What is shown on the right hand side, these are the consumables that are used. The block what you can see is the deep well plate in which we inoculate samples and various reagents. And the comb, like what you can see vertically, these are the comb on which the sample goes into, and the magnetic beads goes into the machine. It is all semi-automated machines. It does everything by itself. And what you can see in the bottom, the horizontal wells, these are the elution wells where we can collect this RNA into the in solution form. This is the extraction machine. This machine has got, we can run 2 sets of samples at a time. So it takes around 30 minutes for one set. It takes almost 1 hour for 2 sets of samples to go for extraction. Next slide, ma'am. This is how we lay out. This is like something like ELISA plate. It is a 96 well plate deep, that what was shown in the previous slide. So this is how we arrange. A well is for all the samples, and you add the magnetic beads, the binding solution, and the proteinase K. In this, once the proteinase K acts on the cells, the cells as well as the virus is lysed. Once this is done, we are safe. The sample doesn't become infective, it is non-infective. Then we add a wash buffer in the set of C wells, and then a 500 microliter ethanol in E well and G well, and we place the COOM in the H well, and we load it into the machine. After 30 minutes, we get the elution buffer, which is full of RNA in it. So this is what we do in extraction. Once this extraction is done, we go for PCR. And if the PCR is delayed, we can store it at minus 80 degrees for till the time for PCR is set. Next slide. Next slide. Now coming to what test we do actually. This is what real-time PCR, real-time reverse transcriptase PCR. Since this is a RNA virus, we need to convert RNA into DNA, and then we look into the products. So that's why we use the term reverse transcriptase, where the dogma of RNA is converted into DNA. If the samples are less, we can use single set of wells, but if it is more, we can use the strips of PCR. Now, since the load is very high, now we are using the plates, which can run a 96 wells plate, like the ELISA well, in which 4 controls are put, and remaining 92 wells, we put the samples. So 92 samples can be run at a go with this PCR. Next slide. Next slide. So depending on the manufacturer's, no, previous slide, manufacturer's instruction, there might be various buffers provided. In the tech kit, what we are using, we have only 2 mixes, that is reaction mix and the enzyme mix. 18.5 microliter of reagent, which is required for the amplification, is put, which contains the probes, primers of target gene and the internal control. Whereas the enzyme mix contains all the enzymes that are required for the PCR, that is Taq polymerase, reverse transcriptase, and uracil DNA glycosylase. Now, this enzyme required, polymerase required for the PCR to make multiple copies. Reverse transcriptase is required for the RNA to get converted into DNA, and then uracil DNA glycolase is required to cleave the DNA in between, so that the reading of the DNA RNA can happen very easily. And then this to this 20 microliter of the reagent, we add only 10 microliter of the extracted RNA, which was taken from the previous machine, is put into the slide, put it in the wells. Next slide, ma'am. Again, this is the programming. How does the screen look? This is how it depends on the machine what we have purchased or procured. Depending on that, we can start this. It depends on the reporter channel. Usually the FAM and the WIC, which is being used, the channels to detect the fluorescence, is used in this kit. So next slide. This is how the setup looks. Again, this is a setup where 96 wells can be drawn, and each well is being labeled with the sample which we put, A1 to A12 and H1 to H12. So altogether 96 wells are put, and we can select the target. So on the left hand side, then if you can put the cursor, left hand side, you can see there is word called target. Left hand side, yeah, target. So there you can see we can make it as a, whether it is a sample. So whether it is a sample, you can see there U, N, and S. U means unknown, which is a sample. S is a standard, and N is negative control or no template control that is being used. Depending on what we are setting, the particular well can be set with this. The target can be the channel which we use for detecting the fluorescence, that is either WIC or hex channels can be used in this testing. Next slide. Once this sample is spread and the worksheet is made, then we set up the PCR cycle. So this is how the program setting goes. Again, it varies from kit to kit and manufacturers to manufacturers of the PCR test. So here, what we are doing is we are having this cycle of 1 and 2, which is at holding for 20 minutes and 10 minutes each. And then we have an amplification that is taking place at 95 degrees for 15 seconds and 60 degrees centigrade for 30 seconds. Very important part of this is each and every cycle in real-time PCR is noted and the signal is being captured by the PCR machine. That's why on the right bottom of the table, you can see the fluorescence measure has to be done at end of each cycle. It is written yes for fluorescence measure. So every cycle from first to 30th cycle, the fluorescence is detected. Here in this, we use CAM channel for RNA detection and WIC or HEX channel for internal control. So depending on the controls and what channel we use, we are diagnosing the patient, the sample. So if you can see the next slide, this is the graph how the sample can be set in the PCR. So next slide, ma'am. So here we have got two holding temperatures, two holding stage, one at 50 degrees for 20 minutes, and the second holding stage in the layout.
Krishna, let me, shall I interrupt you? We have got only 1 minute left.
Yeah, okay. Next slide. Next slide.
Yeah, 1 minute.
So the same program is kept around and the machine is run. As the sample runs on, next slide, we get the reading. So the principle of this is we have a primer which is getting attached to the DNA, RNA, and it goes into